let's begin this session with a small story. This is a story of Mary who celebrated her child's birthday in a restaurant. And the end of the story is that the whole group of people who went to the restaurant to celebrate the birthday fell sick, very sick, the next day. And we will use the example of this story of Mary, who is fighting for her life in the hospital at the moment, along with all the other kids, and two of them really critical. And they are in the hospital, and the restaurant is trying everything possible to manage this difficult situation that they are in. It's very easy for us to blame the restaurant, but they will have their own reasons for the cause of this crisis. And similarly, Mary has her own problems, and she is very upset about the fact that she hosted a party and a lot of people actually fell sick. So it's not a very good situation for Mary to be in, and on top of that, she is fighting for her life, and every time when she is conscious, she sees her husband going in and out of the room, talking to the press and talking to the restaurant managers and things like that. So actually it's not a very good situation for anybody to be in, but we will use this example for us to see how well we should act in crisis in order to come out of it strong and learn from it. So I'm sure you've guessed what we are going to talk about today. Yes, it is crisis management and how well we can work under pressure. Now, what is crisis management? It is coordinated actions taken to diffuse a disaster or make the impact of the disaster a little less. So it's an effort that everybody together takes in order to make the impact less disastrous. Now, there are different dimensions that we can actually view this crisis, the crisis that I spoke about in the beginning of the session. We can view this crisis in different dimensions. The first one, the operations dimension, the victim management dimension, the trust and credibility dimension, the behavior dimension, the professional expectation dimension, the ethical dimension, and the lessons learned dimension. Now let's take the first one, the operations dimension. The first thing for the company or the restaurant to do is to accept that there is a crisis, react appropriately, because normally reacting the right way in a crisis situation is the most difficult thing to do. And if you react in your nervousness, if you react in an inappropriate way, it can be taken as it can convey a very different message. So it's good to think and react the right way. Show that you care goes a long way, because at this moment the restaurant has to show that they really care about the victims and act appropriately. So that's the operations dimension. Now the victim management dimension, of course, you have to be of assistance and you have to be with the grieving families, and you have to be with the families who are affected, and you have to be with the victims. So you have to be of assistance to the victims. Of course, you have to express regret for what happened. You have to involve yourself completely. You cannot be aloof. Information, you have to get the right information as to what exactly happened. We have to do a little bit of a research to find out what happened. And of course, recognition of the problem. The third dimension is the trust and credibility dimension. Now, in this, the victims or trusting you with because they are the victims and they trust that you will do something to help them. So you have to live up to that here. You have to provide advance information, ask for inputs. This is all the research that the restaurant as managers they can do, okay, the workers there. They have to listen carefully to the victims, to the plights of the victims. They have to listen very carefully to to all that the media has to say, or the people have to say, or the victims have to say, the families have to say. They have to listen carefully to that, and of course, you know, change your plans accordingly and give what the best that you can give to the victims. You should stay in touch. You cannot be, you know, you cannot steer clear of the situation. You have to be involved. You have to be there, right there, and stay in touch. Speak to the victims in plain language, a language that they can understand, to the families in a language that they can understand, because using complicated languages and confusing people is not going to reflect you as a good entrepreneur or a good organization. So you have to speak in plain, simple language, and you have to be a part, you have to be with the victims and be a part of their, you know, you have to bring the victims and the participants into the decision making process. So you have to involve the victims and their families and the media or the organizations who come forward to help in order to make the victims comfortable. Now, these are some of the steps that you can take to build the trust of the victims and bring up your credibility as an organization. The behavior dimension, the next one, where you should avoid blame shifting, because that does not help and that does not show you as a right organization. So that's really harmful for the image of your organization. Inappropriate language, which is completely to be avoided, inflammatory statements, missed opportunities to communicate, and not admitting to your responsibilities. These are some things, they are complete no as far as the behavior dimension is concerned, because you have to avoid these in order to project yourself as an organization that is responsible. It's an important part of crisis management. The professional expectation dimension, where you know, you have to behave according to the standards that are set by the company or the industry, and you have to live up to the expectations of the community at large, and also the code of conduct and the codes of ethics should be properly followed for you to so it has to be within the bounds of the codes of conduct and codes of ethics. The sixth one is the ethical dimension, which is where you use the heart. You work use your heart and work, you know, use the strength of your heart. You have to make a more ethical assessment of the whole situation. You have to be human. You have to understand what the victims are going through, have a conscience, and act in ways that reinforce this public expectations. And of course, this to sum it all up, it means that you have to use the strength of your heart and be caring enough towards the victims. And the last one an organization can do to manage this crisis that the organization is in is the lessons learned dimension. Now, it could be the fault of anyone, but at this point in time, this particular organization or the restaurant that we are talking about has landed itself in a crisis. In a crisis that they have to somehow overcome. They have to bring about a lot of changes in order to tackle that crisis, manage the crisis. And at the end of it, once they handle the crisis well, once the crisis is managed well, it is up to them to learn from the mistakes of the past. So every crisis management has something that one can learn from, and learning from those mistakes or learning from those errors that you have committed because of which the crisis happened in the first place, and moving forward and avoiding those is what is sensible and is what a good management or a good organization would do.